Admiral Park Ji-woo felt her stomach drop as she watched the massive energy readings appear on the holographic display. The Deep Space Monitoring Station had been her home for 3 years, watching the empty darkness between stars. Today, that darkness was no longer empty. "Admiral, something big is coming," whispered Technician Ryu Minute-ho from his sensor station. His young face had gone pale as the readings climbed higher and higher. Multiple contacts, massive energy signatures. They're huge. Park stepped closer to the central display, her boots clicking on the metal floor. Around her, the bridge crew of 12 worked frantically at their stations. This was supposed to be humanity's early warning system, built to detect asteroids and comets that might threaten Earth. Nobody had expected it to detect visitors from another world. "Distance and speed?" she asked, keeping her voice steady even as her heart raced. 30 million kilometers and closing. "They'll reach the outer planets in 6 hours, replied Lieutenant Kim Dong-minute, his fingers dancing across his console. "Admiral, these ships are massive. Each one is at least 10 times larger than our biggest vessel." The bridge fell silent except for the quiet hum of the station's life support systems. Through the observation windows, they could see nothing but stars and the distant glow of the sun. But the sensors told a different story. Something was coming to Earth's solar system, and it was not from Earth. "Open communication channels," Park ordered. "All frequencies. Let's see if they want to talk." The response came immediately. The main screen flickered to life, showing not the face of an alien being, but geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. When the voice came through the universal translator, it was cold and without emotion. "Primitive species of the third planet, you have been discovered by the Vorthak Empire." Commander Lee Hyun-woo, Earth's most experienced diplomat, stepped forward. He had spent his entire career preparing for this moment, studying languages and cultures, dreaming of peaceful first contact with alien life. Now, facing the reality, his hands shook slightly. "Your rapid technological advancement and expansion into space marks you as a potential threat to galactic stability," the alien voice continued. "You will surrender immediately and accept planetary quarantine, or face annihilation." Park felt the blood drain from her face. This was not the peaceful meeting of minds that humanity had imagined. This was a demand for surrender from beings they had never met. Lee stepped closer to the communication station. "Admiral, request permission to respond. Perhaps we can negotiate. Maybe there's been a misunderstanding." Before Park could answer, the alien voice cut through their conversation like a blade. "Negative. Your species demonstrates the aggressive expansion pattern typical of dangerous civilizations. You have consumed your planet's resources and now seek to spread beyond your world. This behavior cannot be permitted." The accusation stung because it held a grain of truth. Humanity had indeed used up many of Earth's resources. They had built cities that stretched for hundreds of miles, mined mountains until they were hollow shells, and filled the oceans with their waste. In recent decades, they had begun reaching for the stars, building colonies on Mars and mining stations in the asteroid belt. "But we're trying to do better," Lee said, speaking directly to the alien presence. "We've learned from our mistakes. We're working to heal our world while exploring new ones. We mean no harm to anyone." Through the viewports, the crew watched in growing horror as space itself seemed to bend and twist. Ships began materializing from nothing, appearing as if they had stepped through invisible doorways. Each vessel was a work of art and terror, sleek curves that seemed to flow like liquid metal, bristling with weapons that hummed with barely contained energy. "Over 1,000 ships," whispered Sensor Operator Hanji Minute, her voice barely audible. "Each one could destroy our entire fleet single-handed." The Vorthak Armada spread across the outer solar system like a deadly net. They moved in perfect formation, as if controlled by a single mind. Their weapons turned toward the inner planets where billions of humans lived their daily lives, unaware that their world had just been threatened with extinction. "You have 72 Earth hours to evacuate your orbital installations and ground all spacecraft," the alien voice announced. "Compliance will result in merciful containment. Resistance will result in extinction." The communication ended with a harsh click, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Park stared at the tactical display showing the alien fleet. Earth's entire space force consisted of 80 ships. Most were scientific vessels designed to study distant planets, or mining craft built to harvest asteroids. A few were military ships, but they had been built to fight human enemies, not alien invaders with technology centuries ahead of Earth's. "Send word to Earth Command," Park ordered, her voice steady despite the fear churning in her stomach. "Priority Alpha transmission. Tell them we have visitors, and they're not friendly." Lieutenant Kim's fingers hesitated over his console. Admiral, what should we tell them about our chances? Park looked around the bridge at her crew. These were good people, scientists and soldiers who had dedicated their lives to protecting Earth. Now they faced an enemy that could crush them without effort. But surrender meant the end of human freedom among the stars. It meant accepting a cage, no matter how comfortable their captors might make it. Tell them we'll need a miracle, she said quietly. And then we start working on making one. General Nam Tae-hyun could not sleep. For 3 days, he had been living in the underground command center beneath Seoul, surrounded by screens showing the enemy fleet that hung like a dark cloud over humanity's future. The room smelled of coffee and fear, filled with the best minds from every nation on Earth. Show me the numbers again, he said to his aide, Lieutenant Park So-young. She pressed a button, and the holographic display lit up with painful facts. 1,200 Vorthak ships, she reported. Each one carries weapons that can destroy a city in seconds. Their shields can stop anything we throw at them. Our 80 ships. She paused, looking at the pathetic handful of dots representing Earth's space fleet. Most of them are science ships with small weapons bolted on. Around the large table sat the most important people in the world. President Chen from the Asian Federation rubbed his tired eyes. General Rodriguez from the Americas stared at the ceiling. Dr. Choi Minute-ji, the woman who knew more about alien life than anyone else on Earth, looked through pages of analysis with growing worry. General, Dr. Choi said, I've been studying their communication patterns. These Vorthak follow very strict rules. They do everything the same way, like soldiers who never learned to think for themselves. They expect us to meet them in open space, ship against ship, like an old-fashioned duel. Captain Han Suk-jin had just returned from a dangerous scouting mission to the outer system. His small ship had barely escaped detection by the alien fleet. Now he sat at the table with burns on his hands from flying through asteroid debris. Then we don't give them what they want, Han said firmly. I've been flying in this system for 15 years. I know every asteroid, every moon, every piece of space junk floating out there. These aliens might be smart, but they don't know our home like we do. The first battle happened near Jupiter. Captain Lee Jun-ho led 12 of Earth's fastest ships in a surprise attack on a Vorthak patrol. They used Jupiter's largest moon as cover, hiding in its shadow until the alien ships came close. Then they struck fast and ran away, disappearing into the gas giant's swirling storms. We got 3 of them, Lee reported over the radio, his voice crackling with static. But we lost 4 ships. Their weapons? General, when they hit us, our ships just melted. The second battle was at the asteroid belt. Commander Kim Young-soo had turned mining explosives into space mines, hiding them among the rocks. When Vorthak ships came hunting for the human fleet, they flew into a trap. Explosions lit up the darkness as alien vessels ran into mines they never saw coming. But the victories were small, and the losses were huge. Every day, more human ships died. Every day, the Vorthak fleet moved closer to Earth. On the 4th day, Admiral Park called from her command ship near Mars. Her voice was tired but determined. General, we're falling back to Mars. Half our fleet is gone. We need time to think of something new. The retreat to Mars was painful to watch. Earth's surviving ships limped through space, many of them damaged and leaking air. Behind them came the Vorthak fleet like a slow but deadly storm, taking their time because they knew humans had nowhere left to run. On Mars, human colonies worked day and night to help the war effort. The domed cities that had taken decades to build were now turned into weapons factories. Children and grandparents worked together, building missiles and repairing damaged ships. Everyone knew that if Mars fell, Earth would be next. We have 40 ships left, Admiral Park reported from the Mars orbital station. The red planet spun slowly below her, its rusty surface scarred with human settlements that had become military bases overnight. General Nam looked at the tactical display. 40 human ships against over 1,000 alien vessels. The mathematics were simple and brutal. Admiral, you don't have to do this. You could surrender, save your crews. No, General, Park replied. If we run now, we'll never stop running. Besides, my people signed up to protect Earth. That includes buying time for you to think of a miracle. The Vorthak ships approached Mars in perfect formation, moving like pieces on a chessboard. They had learned to be more careful after the surprise attacks, but they still moved with the confidence of predators who knew their prey was trapped. Captain Yoon Dae-ho commanded the defense of Mars' largest moon. His 10 ships were hidden in the deep canyons that cut across the moon's surface, waiting for the aliens to come close enough for one last fight. All ships, this is Admiral Park, came the voice over the radio. We're going to make them remember this day. We're going to show them that humans don't give up, no matter what the odds. The alien fleet moved closer, their weapons glowing with deadly energy. On Earth, billions of people watched the sky and prayed. In underground bunkers, scientists worked frantically on new weapons. In space near Mars, 40 human ships prepared to face an enemy that should have been impossible to beat. All vessels, Admiral Park commanded, hold your positions. Wait for my signal. We're going to teach these aliens something they've never learned before. We're going to show them what happens when you threaten humanity's home. The final battle was about to begin. Dr. Song-Eun-hee had not left her laboratory for 3 days. Empty coffee cups covered her desk, and her eyes were red from staring at computer screens. Around her, pieces of broken alien technology lay scattered like a puzzle she desperately needed to solve. This has to work, she whispered to herself, picking up another fragment of Vorthak armor. The metal was unlike anything from Earth, smooth and warm to the touch even though it had been floating in the cold of space for days. Her assistant, Dr. Yang Kitai, brought her another cup of coffee. He was young and eager, fresh from university with dreams of making great discoveries. Now those dreams had become humanity's last hope. Dr. Song, you need to rest, Yang said gently. You've been working without sleep. No time, she replied, connecting another piece of alien technology to her analysis machine. Every hour we waste, more people die. There has to be something, some weakness we can use. The breakthrough came when she was examining a piece of Vorthak shield generator. The machine that projected their protective barriers had been damaged in battle, but still contained valuable data. As Song fed the information into her computer, patterns began to appear on the screen. Wait, she said, leaning closer. Yang, look at this. Their shields are amazing against energy weapons. Plasma, lasers, particle beams, nothing gets through. And they stop fast-moving objects like missiles and bullets. Yang frowned at the data. Then how do we hurt them? Song's tired eyes suddenly grew wide. Look at this frequency pattern. The shields react to speed and energy signatures. But what if something moved slowly? What if it had the right electromagnetic pattern? She ran the numbers again, checking her work twice. The Vorthak shields were designed to stop weapons, not slow-moving objects that looked harmless. It was like a security guard who watched for running attackers but ignored people walking calmly through the door. Meanwhile, across the solar system, Captain Lim Jae-sung was in the most dangerous place a human had ever been, inside a Vorthak warship. His team of 5 soldiers had used a captured alien shuttle to sneak aboard the massive vessel. Now they moved through corridors filled with enemies that looked like giant insects walking on 2 legs. Stay quiet, Lim whispered to his team. We need to reach their computer center and get out before they catch us. The Vorthak ship was enormous, with hallways that stretched for miles. The walls glowed with alien symbols that hurt to look at directly. Strange sounds echoed from hidden rooms, and the air smelled of chemicals that made the humans feel sick. Sergeant Oh Kyung-soo carried the computer equipment they needed to steal alien data. He was small and quick, chosen for this mission because he could move quietly and work fast with technology. Captain, this way, Oh whispered, pointing down a corridor that sloped upward. The computer center should be at the top of the ship. They climbed for what felt like hours, hiding whenever alien footsteps echoed nearby. Finally, they reached a room filled with machines that hummed with power. This was the brain of the Vorthak ship, where all their battle plans and fleet information was stored. Download everything, Captain Lim ordered as alarms began to sound throughout the ship. Fleet positions, command codes, battle plans, take it all. O worked frantically as alien voices grew louder outside the room. His human computer equipment was crude compared to the Vorthak machines, but it could steal their data if given enough time. Back on Earth, General Nam was organizing the strangest military operation in human history. In every spaceport across the solar system, civilian ships were being loaded with nuclear weapons. These were not warships, they were cargo haulers, mining vessels, passenger liners, even rich people's pleasure craft. Are you sure about this, General? Asked Colonel Bae Sung-minute, watching as an old cargo ship was fitted with enough nuclear explosives to destroy a city. These civilian ships are slow and defenseless. That's exactly why it might work, Nam replied. Dr. Song's discovery changes everything. The aliens expect us to attack with fast military ships. They won't see civilian vessels as threats. The hardest part was finding people willing to fly the ships. Everyone knew this was a one-way mission. The civilian volunteers would have to fly close to alien vessels and detonate their nuclear cargo, destroying themselves in the process. But the volunteers came anyway. Old miners who had spent their lives in space. Young pilots who wanted to protect their families. Retired couples who had nothing left to lose. Even teenagers who lied about their age to join the mission. "I've been flying cargo ships for 30 years, said Captain Park Minitsu, an old man with gray hair and steady hands. "If my ship can save Earth, then I'm honored to fly it." Admiral Park received Captain Lim's stolen data just as the final Vorthak attack began. The alien information showed exactly how their fleet was organized and where their command ships were located. "Attention all civilian volunteers," she broadcast across the solar system. "This is Admiral Park. I won't lie to you, most of you won't survive this mission. But if we succeed, humanity stays free. If we fail, our children will live as prisoners." Across space, 10,000 civilian volunteers acknowledged her message. Some were crying. Some were laughing. All of them were ready to die for Earth's freedom. The final battle was about to begin, and for the first time since the war started, humanity had a plan that might actually work. The battle began at dawn on Mars, though dawn in space meant nothing more than the moment when Admiral Park gave the signal to attack. 4 weeks, humanity had prepared for this moment, and now 10,000 civilian ships drifted through space like harmless debris, each one carrying enough nuclear explosives to level a mountain. "All military units, begin the attack," Admiral Park commanded from her flagship. Around Mars, 40 human warships roared to life, their engines blazing as they charged directly toward the massive Vorthak fleet. Communications Officer Bae Sujin watched her screens with growing excitement. "Admiral, the aliens are reacting exactly as we hoped. They're focusing all their attention on our military ships. They think the civilian vessels are just space junk." Captain Kim Jun-ho led the frontal assault with his squadron of 12 fighters. These were Earth's fastest ships, built for hit-and-run attacks. Now they served as bait, drawing the aliens away from the real threat. "Dragon Squadron, follow my lead," Kim radioed to his pilots. "We need to look dangerous enough to keep their attention. Use the stolen intelligence, target their command ships first." The human fighters danced through space like deadly butterflies, dodging plasma blasts that could melt steel. They used every trick they had learned, flying through asteroid fields where the big alien ships could not follow, using Mars moons as shields, even diving through the planet's thin atmosphere to confuse enemy sensors. Lieutenant Cho Haijin piloted her fighter through a gap between 2 Vorthak cruisers, her ship's hull glowing red from near misses. "Captain Kim, I'm getting multiple target locks. They're really angry at us." "Good," Kim replied, spinning his ship around a piece of space debris. "The madder they get at us, the less attention they pay to everything else." The Vorthak had conquered dozens of worlds using the same battle plan. Their massive ships would form perfect lines, overwhelming enemies with superior firepower and technology. They had never faced opponents who refused to play by the rules of civilized warfare. But humans had learned to fight dirty during their long history of war. They used gravity slingshots around planets to gain impossible speed. They coordinated attacks through jury-rigged radios that should not have worked across such distances. Most importantly, they did things that made no sense to logical alien minds. The breakthrough came when the first civilian ship reached its target. Captain Park Minitsu, the old cargo pilot, had volunteered to test Dr. Song's theory. His ancient freight hauler moved slowly toward a Vorthak destroyer, looking like nothing more than floating scrap metal. "This is Park Minitsu," he radioed calmly. "Approaching target now. The alien shields aren't even trying to stop me. I'm going right through them like they don't exist." Across the solar system, Dr. Song watched from her laboratory as her theory became deadly reality. The slow-moving civilian ship passed through the Vorthak shields without resistance, sliding up to the alien hull like a fish swimming through water. "For Earth," Park Minitsu said quietly, and then his ship exploded in a ball of nuclear fire that consumed the entire Vorthak destroyer. That was the signal for 10,000 other civilian volunteers. All across the battle zone, cargo ships, mining vessels, passenger liners, and pleasure craft began their final approach. The aliens, still focused on the military ships that were shooting at them, never noticed the real danger until it was too late. Nuclear explosions began blooming throughout the Vorthak fleet like deadly flowers. Each blast destroyed alien ships that had seemed untouchable just moments before. The perfect alien formation started to crack and crumble as ship after ship vanished in brilliant flashes of light. "Impossible," came an alien voice over the radio, speaking through the universal translator. "How are you penetrating our defenses?" Captain Kim heard the confusion in the alien voice and smiled grimly. "Because you never learned to think like humans," he said, though he knew the aliens could not hear him. The battle reached its climax when Admiral Park realized her flagship was doomed. Enemy fire had torn through her ship's hull, and her engines were failing. But directly ahead of her was the massive Vorthak mothership, the command vessel that controlled the entire alien fleet. "All crew to escape pods," she ordered. "This is Admiral Park's final command. Tell Earth we held the line." Her officers protested, but Park had already sealed herself on the bridge. She aimed her dying ship at the alien mothership's command center, where Captain Lim's stolen intelligence showed their fleet coordination systems were located. The collision shook space itself. Admiral Park's ship, small compared to the alien vessel, struck like a bullet hitting the brain of a giant. Explosions rippled through the mothership's command center, destroying the computers that controlled the entire Vorthak fleet. Suddenly, the perfectly organized alien armada found itself blind and confused. Ships that had moved like parts of a single mind now drifted helplessly, their crews unable to communicate with each other or coordinate their attacks. Captain Kim saw his chance. All remaining ships, final assault. Hit them while they're confused. The surviving human vessels, both military and civilian, struck the scattered alien fleet like a hammer. Without their coordination systems, the technologically superior Vorthak ships became sitting targets for human weapons and suicide attacks. And then, for the first time in the war, impossible words came over the radio. "Vorthak fleet is withdrawing," reported Communications Officer BAE, her voice filled with disbelief. "They're running away." Humanity had won. 3 months had passed since the Battle of Mars, but General Nam still woke up every night thinking about the cost of victory. He walked through the rebuilt command center in Seoul, looking at reports that told a story of triumph and tragedy mixed together like blood and water. 2 million people were dead. The number was too big to understand, but each death represented someone's family destroyed, someone's dreams ended forever. Earth space stations had been turned to scrap metal floating in the void. The proud fleet that had once explored distant worlds was now reduced to 30 damaged ships held together with spare parts and hope. Yet somehow, impossibly, they had won. The mighty Vorthak Empire, conquerors of a dozen worlds, had been defeated by humans they had called primitive. "General," called his aide, Lieutenant Park So-young. "The morning briefing is ready. Reconstruction reports from Mars, casualty updates from the outer colonies, and..." She paused, looking troubled, something strange from Dr. Choi. Nam nodded and made his way to the briefing room. The same table where they had planned humanity's desperate defense now hosted meetings about rebuilding their shattered civilization. President Yoon Ha-jin looked older than his years, his hair having gone completely gray during the war. Admiral Lim Jae-sung, promoted after his dangerous mission to steal alien secrets, still bore scars from his time aboard the enemy ship. Dr. Choi Minute-ji burst through the door like a woman carrying fire. Her usually neat hair was messy, and her eyes were bright with excitement and fear. In her hands, she clutched a data tablet as if it contained the secrets of the universe. "General, everyone, you need to see this immediately," she said, almost out of breath. "We've finally decoded the rest of the Vorthak communications that Captain Lim stole. What we found changes everything." She activated the room's holographic display, filling the air with alien symbols that slowly transformed into human words. The assembled leaders read in growing amazement as the truth of their war was revealed. "It was a test," Dr. Choi explained, her voice shaking slightly. "The entire invasion, the demands for surrender, the battle that nearly destroyed us, all of it was an evaluation. The Galactic Council uses the Vorthak Empire to test new civilizations." President Yoon leaned back in his chair as if someone had punched him in the stomach. "You mean they never intended to wipe us out?" "Oh, they absolutely would have killed us all if we had failed," Dr. Choi replied quickly. "The test is real, and the danger was real. But it was designed to see what kind of people we are. Do we surrender when faced with impossible odds? Do we fight only for ourselves, or do we sacrifice for others? Can we think creatively when our survival depends on it?" Admiral Lim's face grew dark with anger. "After everything we lost, everything we suffered, they want to tell us it was just a test? My soldiers died believing they were saving humanity from extinction." "They were," Dr. Choi said gently. "That's exactly why we passed. The Galactic Council has been watching civilizations for thousands of years. Most species either surrender immediately or fight stupidly and get themselves destroyed. We did something different." She pressed another button, and the display showed new documents, formal communications in dozens of alien languages. "Our victory, especially the way we won it, has impressed the entire galaxy," she continued. Using civilian volunteers, thinking of tactics no military academy would teach, sacrificing everything for freedom rather than accepting comfortable slavery, these things marked us as special. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. Their desperate battle, fought with courage born of desperation, had been watched and judged by beings across the stars. "We've received an official invitation," Dr. Choi announced. "The Galactic Council wants Earth to join them as an equal member. We would have access to technologies that could heal our world, knowledge that could advance our science by centuries, and the protection of the most powerful alliance in the galaxy." The debate that followed lasted for hours. Some wanted to accept immediately, the benefits were obvious, and Earth needed all the help it could get to recover from the war. Others were furious at beings who had tested humanity through death and destruction. "How can we trust them?" demanded General Rodriguez, who had lost his own son in the battle for Mars. "They killed millions of our people to see if we were worthy of their club." "But they also gave us a chance," replied Dr. Chen, the scientist who had worked to decode alien technology. "They could have simply destroyed us from a distance. Instead, they tested us fairly, and we proved ourselves." President Yoon finally spoke, his voice carrying the weight of his office and his grief. "We will engage with the Galactic Council, but not as grateful children receiving charity. We earned our place among the stars with our blood and sacrifice. We will meet them as equals." The decision was made to join the galaxy, but on human terms. Earth would share its knowledge and accept alien technology, but it would never again allow others to decide humanity's fate. Years later, sleek new ships patrolled the solar system. They combined human creativity with alien technology, each one bearing the name of someone who had died in the war. Admiral Park's final words had become humanity's motto: "We held the line." Humanity had learned the universe's hardest lesson, that peace could only be maintained through strength, and that sometimes the greatest test of who you are comes when everything seems lost.